Sorry, lucky I remembered that halfway through. So what drives us is working towards all community and not-for-profit organisations working at their full potential. It's my first online workshop for a while. I'm a bit out of practice. And the way we do that is through providing training and support at the business end of running your organisation. So we do that through running workshops. So lots of fantastic people like yourselves in a room at once, which I absolutely love because you get to learn from each other. And we've got a little bit of that in here for today. We also run workshops in-house, so we can run a workshop for you to do whatever it is you need done. I facilitate workshops around all sorts of different things, and we focus on everything from governance, strategic planning, raising funds, so sustainable funding for your organisation, exploring different income streams, raising your profile, growing great volunteer teams. We run a whole lot of different workshops that are focused around the business end of running your organisation. We also create resources. So there's lots of stuff out there and we create lots of stuff too. And I know that often you don't have a chance because you're doing lots of to tap into the resources that are out there. So we spend time finding things that we think you would find helpful. And we put those in a magazine that's published once a quarter and with an email that's sent out each week. And there's loads of resources on our website too. So if you're looking for anything, just go and check that out. And we also run a not-for-profit conference, which is happening in Palmerston North this year in November. So we do a bit of stuff. And I feel every day very privileged to work with people who are doing fantastic things in your communities. So that's a little bit about Exult. A little bit about me. So I've been a meeting facilitator and trainer for around about, I have to do the tally at the start of each year, so around about 19 years. And my area of super duper passion is community organisations, and also in terms of my background is around creativity and innovation. So I'm fascinated by how people have ideas, not necessarily the science of how it happens, more around you have the idea and then what happens. So do you share it with other people? And if you do, what are things that are helpful around that or helpful to help you do that? And what are the things that get in the way? And then what are some really helpful processes to help you take an idea through from the very starting point to the point where you're closer to making it happen? And that's what we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to share with you some really practical processes and frameworks that can help you take an idea and work it through from idea to making it happen. I also wanted to introduce you to the fabulous Gillian, who is top left on my screen. I'm not sure if you can all see. So Gillian's part of the Exult team as well. As we go through the session, can you please put any questions or thoughts or ideas in chat if it's not the right time quite to share with the group by pressing your space bar. And Gillian's just going to keep an eye on things as we go through if I need to make sure I don't miss anything. But if I do miss anything, please ask on repeat. Very good. Okay. So I have a bit of a plan for the session this morning, and I love to run interactive workshops, especially online, because I think there's not often much fun in just watching someone talk. We're quite tight on time this morning, so there won't be as much opportunity to do interactive stuff. But what I wanted to do first up is I'm just going to get you into breakout groups really quickly. So this is going to be a short session. I'm going to get you into small breakout groups of 3 or so people. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself really quickly in your organisation, share your elevator pitch. And then I want you to talk about where you've had experience of turning an idea into reality in the past. What has worked, what's helped you in terms of making that happen, and what are some of the things that have got in the way. So have a quick chat in your groups, and then we're going to come back together as a full group, and I'm going to get you to share, and I'm going to record as part of the session. I'm going to record in a notes document, and what I love about that is it's the opportunity for us all to learn from each other. So you will have some fantastic ideas of things that you've done before that have worked. Let's gather them and share, and then when you let me know where you've had gaps or issues or concerns, I'll make sure that we cover those off as we go through the session or with whatever we send out afterwards. Done? Yeah. So introduce yourself, elevator pitch, and talk about when you've turned an idea gone from idea to reality, making it happen, what's worked well, and where have you had some gaps or issues or concerns. Righty-hoo, all going well with the fantastic breakout room mechanism. Has everyone done breakout rooms before? I ask this every time, but I'm no? Ah, awesome. So if you haven't done it before, it's really cool. And if you have done it before, you get to do it again. And it's just a random assigning of people to breakout groups. If you drop out of the breakout group for any reason, just come back into the session and you'll come straight back into the main room. And I'll give you the 5-minute call, the 3-minute call, and the 2-minute call. So we'll do just over 6 minutes for this session, for this chat. Very steady. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to make sure I've got the right number of rooms. There we go. We've got about 3 in each room. Brilliant. Gillian, you can just stay in with me if you like, or you can go into a breakout room. So push the button that you can see on your screen. Paki, are you assigned to a breakout room and maybe you've just decided not to join, and that is absolutely fine.
Oh my goodness, I pushed the wrong button.
This meeting is being recorded.
Were you in the middle of a lovely conversation, Linda, and you've ended up back here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Do you
my video's follow? My video's not on solely because my computer's just throwing a bit of a wobbly.
Oh, that's all right. All good. All good. As long as you can hear well.
Margaret, I was just saying we were having a lovely conversation and I pushed the wrong button and I reflected to the main room. Sorry. My apologies.
No problem.
All good. All good. It's a very short session to get to know each other and have a bit of a chat.
Yeah. Exciting stuff happening in Kihi and King Country.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Lovely. So it won't take a moment. Everyone will join us in just a second. I've lost my countdown. Here we go. Brilliant. 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 Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. So I totally recognise that it is like speed dating. I don't know if you saw that message I sent through. You know, it's not usually quite enough time to get into the nitty gritty, but I hope it's a nice opportunity to meet a couple of people who are part of this session and absolutely connect afterwards if that's something that suits. So what I'd love to do is hear from you quickly. So we're just going to do a quick few minutes where I would love for you to share what you talked about. And I'm going to use a specific way to hear from you. So because we don't have the opportunity to hear from you all. So I'm going to share my screen right now, all going well. Can you now see a fabulously boring looking Word document that says Waikato Funders Forum on turning your ideas into reality? Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you. What did you talk about in your group? So don't worry about introducing yourself at this point. I would just love to hear from you about what you talked about that is your experience of the past or someone you know who did this before, where they worked towards making an idea reality and there were things that worked really well. What was it that worked really well? And as you share, I'll type when you're ready. Don't be shy.
Oh, well, I'll jump in and get started then, Megan.
Thanks, Janine. Awesome.
So just with my legendary Tika Witi hat on,
yeah.
When we've got projects on the go, we have subcommittees.
Subcommittees, yeah.
And the purpose
Lovely.
of that is that everybody that's in that committee doesn't need to hear the detail of every single thing that's going on. So when you break into subcommittees,
yeah,
you get more power, you get more traction, and then you go back to the full committee.
Yeah.
Or basically sign off. Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed. Get more power, get more traction, get more done. Brilliant. Lovely. Okay, so and I love subcommittees for that exactly. So it's about getting a group of people together who potentially have the passion, the desire, the skills to help you move an idea forward, and moving things forward, and then sharing it back with the wider group as you need to get their buy-in. Brilliant. So, and I'll share with you some processes for doing that today. So that's fantastic. So the important thing to think about when you're setting up those subcommittees too is to be very, very clear around what decisions can be made within the subcommittee and what decisions need to be made by whoever the governing group is or whoever's a decision-making group. So subcommittees are awesome. What else did you talk about? What works well?
Can I jump in this one?
Yes, please, Jack. Yeah.
So one of the things that worked really well for us, this was working in sport and hockey in particular.
Yeah.
We were looking at our under 11 rep program and decided that under 11s aren't really representative and we can probably do a little bit better.
Brilliant.
The key thing that we did was we had a really clear communication strategy.
Yeah.
Because we were dealing with the whole of the northern region, so basically Taupo up, we had to make sure that we were all on the same page and that we were all giving the same message.
Yeah.
And that message was coming out at the same time to everybody as well, because obviously the squeaky wheel syndrome and fake news, they were things that
Indeed.
us.
Indeed. Absolutely. And fake news thrives in a vacuum, doesn't it? So if you haven't shared the communications yourself, someone will create it and they'll share it themselves. Thanks, Jack. Thanks a lot for that. Okay, so a couple more. What worked well? One more.
So yeah, I guess in the communities that I've worked to support is that when one person has a great idea for something, is that they find like-minded people to share the journey with them, because it's the biggest thing is the overwhelm of doing it on your own. So finding a team to team up with.
Lovely. So you've got some people on side, some people to help you out, and you don't have that overwhelm of trying to do it by yourself. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's move on. But this is an awesome way to share where things have worked for you in the past. And if you haven't had a chance to share, if you were feeling a little bit shy, like sometimes happens, pop it in chat and I'll just pull it out of chat and pull it into this document and put it into the slides to share with you for later. So we talked about what's worked well in the past. Now I would love to focus on where potentially did you have some gaps or some issues or some concerns or some challenges in terms of taking that idea and making it reality. And I would love you to frame up those gaps or issues or concerns with how to. So I'm using a process here during this process that actually we're going to talk about as we go through the session, because it's a really awesome process to help for developing ideas. In this situation, we're using it to review. And one of the things that happens with gaps or issues or concerns is, one, they usually come out first. So we're reviewing something and we jump straight to all of the things that didn't work, because we want to improve how we do things next time, which jumps over immediately all of the things that did work. And by focusing on what did work first, it's a chance to celebrate. And then if we just put things out and they hang in the air, so we didn't have enough money, could indeed have been a gap or a challenge or an issue. Well, what do you do with that? We don't have enough money, or we didn't have enough money. If you reframe it to how to find the funds to implement, or how to find the funds to X, Y, Z, then that turns it into a task that you can do problem solving around later on to move things forward. So when you're ready, hit me with your gaps or issues or challenges framed as how to. You didn't have any. That's awesome.
Well, I'm going to use the one of finance. Didn't have enough finance to float the idea, or the other one is the costs. The costs increased through the duration of the planning of.
So there's something there around how to manage the cost versus budget. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so 2 ones related to finance. Thanks, Janine, for sharing. So we've got how to have enough finance to float the idea. So that's quite a specific task that you can do some problem solving around. So that's a communication issue, isn't it? So how to ensure that when you're doing the budget, you have some money in your budget for communication, for making sure that we can communicate the idea and share it with whomever we need to. And how to manage cost versus budget as you're working through the project. So there's, definitely, depending on the scale of your idea, you'll need to think about how much is this going to cost us, and potentially there's a feasibility part first, and then there's an implementation part as well. How much is it going to cost, having a budget, and then tracking that budget as you go through the project to give yourself the opportunity to raise more funds from other places if you need to get it done. Awesome, lovely. One more. What was a gap or an issue or concern that you shared in your groups?
Taking everyone on the journey.
Yeah,
with
lovely,
idea.
lovely. Brilliant. How to take everyone on the journey with the idea. Brilliant, lovely. So because you're going on a journey with the idea too, so you start somewhere and you'll be developing as you go. How can you make sure that you take everyone on that journey with you too? Brilliant. Okay, thank you for sharing. So again,
one more, please?
Indeed, yeah.
How to deal with the changes to the plan that COVID brings about?
Indeed. Yeah. Lovely. So you've made a plan, you've got an idea, you've got a plan to bring it to life, to implement it, and there's this thing called COVID that may have slightly mean that you need to change course as you go through. So how do you manage for that? Brilliant. Okay, and if there are any other things that you talked about in your group, please just pop in pop in the chat, and I'll pop it into the document to share as part of the notes. Awesome. So two reasons for that. One was just to get you to have a bit of a chat first up and share first up, but also to use that constructive evaluation process, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. I'm going to stop sharing this Word document, and I'm going to get into my fabulous slides just to give you a sense of definitions. Hang on a second. Okay, so can you all see a slide on your screen now that says turning your idea into reality? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I always check, because there have been the odd occasion where I've shared something in terms of sharing my screen. That was not the intention. Okay, so first up, a couple of definitions. An idea. So what is an idea? It's a plan or a scheme or a method of making or doing or accomplishing something. We all know what an idea is. And creativity is a person's ability to generate fresh ideas. So, and I could do a whole session on creativity too, also very fascinating, but it's not necessarily what we're focusing on today. But one thing I did want to say, and the purpose of having this in here to think about creativity, is that creativity is also something that gets in the way in terms of people buying into your idea and coming on board with your idea. Yeah. So how many of you have ever heard, I am not an ideas person, I make things happen? Yeah. So people's perception of their own creativity will sometimes get in the way of helping you to bring your idea to fruition. So I just wanted to flag that, and we'll talk about that as we go through the session too. And then innovation, or making your idea happen, as innovation is people creating value by making new ideas happen. That is innovation. So essentially we're talking about innovation. And the thing is that there are some ideas around having ideas. So sometimes people think if we've had a great idea, it will sell itself. It's such a flipping great idea. Who is going to argue with the fact that we should absolutely do that? It's going to sell itself. People will love this idea. Oh my gosh, I love this idea. Everyone else is going to love this idea. And if it solves a need, what is the opposition? Why isn't everyone just embracing it and making it happen? Yeah. So those are some of the myths around having new ideas. The reality, however, looks a little bit more like this sometimes. So the bottom of the road at the bottom of the hill is at the top right-hand corner of the picture here. It's never a straight line. It's always in all sorts of different directions, and you'll need to change for things, especially like COVID, like someone shared just before. The reality is the road is not straight, and you'll take all sorts of different deviations and detours as you go through the process. So I'll talk about some things that are really helpful for keeping focus as that happens all around you. So the reality is that people don't really like new ideas because it means they have to change what they're doing. Yeah. So even though you think it's an awesome idea, it takes a bit of selling in sometimes, especially if the people that you're asking to implement the idea or work with you to make it happen were not involved in creating the idea in the first place. New ideas involve change. It can be risky. It requires effort. I'm just working away. Why fix it if it's not broke? You know, let's just keep on doing it how it's been done. So there's a bit of opposition when you want to do something that requires effort on the part of other people. And the reality is that new ideas become reality or happen because individuals act like entrepreneurs. Yeah. So entrepreneurs is not a word that we often use in the for-profit community sector. However, you are all entrepreneurs. If you've had an idea and you've made it happen, you are an entrepreneur. And that's how you need to behave to make your idea get from an idea to reality. It takes work on your part, and sometimes it's a constant windy road where you hit obstacles at all sorts of different points on the journey. I really love this way of describing it in a graphic way. So that's a T.S. Eliot quote, between the idea and the reality falls the shadow, you know, so you have this idea and maybe to start with you're a bit skeptical, or maybe other people are a bit skeptical, but as you ponder it a little bit more, you get a bit enthusiastic and a bit keen about it. And then you get to the point where there's brass bands and fireworks. This is an awesome idea. And then over time, it can take a bit of work. So if it doesn't come to fruition straight away, it's, oh, this is taking a bit of time. It takes a bit more energy. If results aren't visible straight away, which often happens with making a new idea reality, existing business is suffering, or your other work that you're doing or your organization is doing, it feels like you're being pulled in another direction because you're focusing on trying to get this idea to happen. You even have that moment where you think, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it time for me just to walk away? And then at the bottom of that peak there, call it the dark night of the innovator. That's the moment where you're in the corner, shaking and rocking back and forth because you just can't work out why this fantastic idea it's so hard to make it happen. And then if you can just push through that, and we'll talk about how you do that as part of the session, you can start to see payoffs. So if you chip away at things a little bit at a time, celebrate quick wins and small wins, then it gives you motivation and it helps keep momentum. And then you're starting to think, oh, maybe this is not a bad idea. And as you get more people involved with helping you to develop and modify the idea, it builds pessimism into optimism until you get to the point where it's like, yeah, it works. And we're all brass bands and fireworks again and implementing the idea. It's a very simplistic way to put it. But some of you might recognize that journey as having, felt like you were working through something like that before. Ever had this happen? Yeah, I see some shaking heads. Yeah. So you've got this brilliant idea and you can't wait to share it with everyone, and you share it with everyone and it's put to death by 1,000 different methods, by jumping straight to looking for all the reasons why it won't work. So what happens then is part of the resistance to change, definitely, but it can also be to do with when you share the idea. So here's a wee thought around mindset in terms of sharing ideas. And it's important for your mindset as you're developing the idea, but it's also important in thinking about and being strategic with when you share your idea with other people and how you do that. So on the left-hand side there is what we call operation world. So both of these worlds are vitally important. As we do stuff, our fantastic brain we create processes around doing things which make us more efficient. So we create rules and routines and processes. We have things that we know if we start at A and we get to B, we start at A, we follow the process, we will get to B as a known solution. And it's more about the rational. So that's the world we operate in most of the time. I'm just going to thank you, Kirsten. I'm just going to, that's the world that we operate in most of the time. And there we go. What happens is if you go to someone with your awesome idea and they are neck deep in the operational world, so they're following a routine, they're using a process, they're focused on getting something done by a deadline, without a doubt, they will find all of the reasons why your new idea or why your idea won't work. Yeah, because they're in the operational mindset and that's how they're functioning. So operational world is really important because it helps us to be efficient and effective. But what it does is it's not always the best mindset for receiving something new. So then an opportunity for change comes up, which is in this case you and your fabulous idea, and you've picked the right time to share it with people. So you've gone to a cafe for coffee, or you're just chatting over lunch, or you're standing by the water cooler having a bit of a cordial. You've gone into the innovation world. So different mindset. It's all about speculating, developing solutions, experimenting, trying things out. And then evaluating in a constructive way. So constructive evaluation is going to pop up lots as we talk through this session, but it's about looking for what works and looking for areas that are gaps or issues or concerns that we can problem solve to move things forward and continuously improve. And what often happens is with the innovation world, we cycle around in the innovation world until we find something that works, and then it comes back into the operation world and becomes part of the way that we do things. So that awesome new process that you created for doing XYZ, at one point you were in the innovation world around trying to get that to happen and sharing it with others and getting people bought in. And once everyone decided this is an awesome process, let's all use it, it came back into the operation world and now you're using it. So keep that in mind, is around mindset and being very strategic with how, when you share your idea. Because if we're knee deep or neck deep or head deep in operation world, without a doubt, you won't get the response or the help that you're looking for. So then the key is how to get people into the innovation world when you want them to help work with you and and how to get yourself into the innovation world when you want to make your idea a reality. And that won't be a second, sorry. Here's a way of thinking about it, and it's two different modes of thinking. So decision-making thinking is the mode that we most often use in the operational world, but actually it's in the innovation world too, because at some point you have to make a decision around stuff. You can't cycle around in the innovation world forever, or else we won't make new things happen. So decision-making thinking is the mode of thinking where people reject or accept the suggestions or alternatives or possible action. So that's when you're asking for a decision, we're at the point where we're ready to make a decision. And quite often new ideas get subjected to decision-making thinking way too early. Yeah, before you've had a chance to develop them and flesh them out. And so then they get shot down in a million different ways. Whereas if you can keep people in developmental thinking, and sometimes you can even use this as a bit of a flag within your team that you're working with. So, if you're at the point where you, let's say you've got an agenda item for your meeting, you want to share a new idea, you might want to flag just as you get started that you want people to use developmental thinking as you're thinking about this idea. You're not at the finished idea, we're at using developmental thinking to progress it a bit further. And that we circle there is a really awesome process for developmental thinking. So when I was talking to the fabulous Sandra from Hamilton City Council about this workshop, we were talking about it's about turning your idea into reality. And the reality for all of you who are part of the session is that that idea will look very, very different depending on the idea. So it could be something that you want to change internally, or an improvement, or a new idea you want to implement inside your organisation with a team. Or it could be a new idea or for a whole new service or organisation. So there's a massive spectrum, which is really quite hard to cover in a 1-hour session. So what I've done is I'm sharing processes and frameworks that can help you depending on where you're at. And some of them you wouldn't go into in as much detail if it's an idea that you're sharing internally, for example. And I'll share with you what I'm thinking about. But what you want to do is you want to get people into developmental thinking when you're sharing your idea. So here's the overview: constructive evaluation, problem solve issues, and build and modify. And we'll share the slides with you, so you don't need to worry about writing down these steps. But the process that I really wanted to share with you is that of constructive evaluation. Honestly, by the time I finish today, you'll be saying constructive evaluation in your sleep, I hope. So what this process is awesome for is avoiding that situation that you can see with taking the hammer to the very fragile egg. So depending on where you're at with your idea, you may need to do some more development with it, or you might need to get a group of people together to help you develop it further. And that's another process that I'm going to share with you. But constructive evaluation is really simple. So take your idea or concept, however it looks at that point in time, and think about pluses. What do you like about it? What's its potential? What's the difference it's going to make? What are the benefits? What do you like about this idea? And write down as many as you can possibly think of. The other thing about writing down pluses and what's working, what works with this idea, is it then becomes information that you can put together to use to sell your ideas to others. Yeah. So at a point in time, you're going to have to share your concept, and part of what you're going to share, depending on who you're talking to, is what is the benefit of this idea? How do I see that the world has changed, or that our organisation has changed, or team has changed when we implement this idea? What's my vision? And how does this idea work towards that vision? So be really mindful and conscious of getting all the positives. What is great? What's the potential? What are the benefits? And then focus on the gaps or issues or concerns, because you'll start, here with a small, I often use the metaphor of a snowball. So, with a snowball, given that very few of us are based in a snowy region, you might have to use your imagination here. So a snowball starts as a snowflake, right? One snowflake, you put together a few more snowflakes, you add a few more, add a few more, add a few more. As you add more snowflakes, the snowball starts to form and become stronger. So that's what you're doing with your idea. So identifying your positives are the starting snowflakes. Identifying where there are gaps or issues or concerns, and then problem solving those is adding more snowflakes to the snowball to make your idea stronger. And it moves along a continuum from beginning idea through to getting closer to implementation, through to implementing. And the third step is to problem solve those gaps or issues or concerns one at a time. So if we went back to the list of what gets in the way in terms of when you've shared an idea before, you've got 4 items there: gaps or issues or challenges, which now you can take one at a time and do some really focused problem solving around, so that next time that doesn't become an issue. And for your idea, that problem solving of gaps or issues or concerns is moving your idea along the continuum and building it up, building it up, building it up. So, and I just wanted to talk to a little bit around language as well for problem solving. Gaps or issues or concerns, I've already talked to the power of how to. So framing gaps or issues or concerns as how to sets them up as tasks that then you can do focused problem solving around. It also kicks your brain into problem solving mode. So language is really powerful in the context of getting from idea to action. So frame your gaps or issues or concerns as how to, because it kicks your brain into problem solving mode. And then you'll notice the language around problem solving those gaps or issues or concerns. I always ask people to frame up their ideas with what you do is. So what you do is in front of an idea helps your brain to click into specific and actionable mode, which is what you're looking for when you're looking for ideas to problem solve concerns. So, but those are the steps for constructive evaluation. Totally simple process, really simple process, and really powerful. So I use it, it's the process I use most often when I'm facilitating or doing anything, when I'm working with organisations to help create new things or anything. It's great for evaluating, reviewing. Honestly, my one-person goal is to have everyone in the whole world using constructive evaluation, because it's flipping awesome. So, and as a process for helping you develop your idea, it can take something that sometimes can feel like it's still quite big, or we've still got quite a bit of work to do around it, and break that bigness down into bite-sized chunks, which then you can chip away at bit at a time, bit at a time, bit at a time, as you problem solve each concern one at a time. And what you're working towards is building up an idea, or building up your idea to the point where you're ready to share it with people. So I totally recognize that this will be hard to read. What I'll do is, it's a social lean canvas, which I found out about through Akina, but is used by a lot of different organizations in the world. Has anyone heard of? Yeah. So it's used a lot in terms of social enterprise and developing social enterprises. So there are some elements of this lean social canvas, and I'll put a link in the presentation as I save it as a PDF, which is the link to the lean social canvas right there, which on the back of it has the description of all of the different elements. So depending on your idea, you might not need to touch on all of these things, but in effect, you're building a business case for your idea. And so here are some things to think about. So one is to get really clear on the why of your idea. So, there's a saying by a guy called Simon Sinek, who I talk about all the time, which is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you exist. So people don't buy what the idea is, they buy why the idea is, or the difference that you're trying to make through the idea. So get really great at framing up your vision for the idea, the purpose of the idea, why it exists, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and then get really great at sharing that story. Then think about the impact of the idea. So, what is going to be the impact when this idea is implemented? What are the benefits? What are the changes, the specific changes that it's going to make? It can help start build a case for your idea. You might want to frame the problem that you're working to solve. So, how have you got to this idea? What was the issue or the need or the problem that you're working to solve? Which is great for sharing with people when you're sharing to get them on board. The solution obviously is the idea, and key metrics are the things that you might use as you go through to measure whether you've got to the point of success or not. How will I know that we've been successful in terms of implementing this idea? I'm not going to talk to all of these bits because there's a fantastic description on the back of the Lean Social Canvas. I'll put the link in the slides. But one I did want to talk about is the unique value proposition. So what is different about this idea? So it's a bit of fangled marketing speak, but what is unique about this idea, which you want to share with people to help get them on board? What is the difference it's going to make? And how potentially, this is if you're creating something new, does this give us an unfair advantage? So it's all about building a case for why this is a great idea. Who's the target for your idea can be something that's really helpful to share with people as you're getting them on board. So, you might have an idea that is potentially aimed at older persons, let's say, and if people don't get that straight off, they may not receive the idea in the way that you wish that they did. So this is about building a case for your idea. And then it's about thinking about the financial pieces, the budget, and how we're going to raise the funds to do that. So this is quite comprehensive, and with all templates, it's about taking the bits that are most helpful for you, depending on the idea that you're sharing. At its most fundamental, it's about why would we do this idea? What's the difference it's going to make? What are the benefits? Have we got the funds to do it, or how much is it going to cost potentially? And how is it going to make a difference is what you're looking to share. There's also a link that I'm going to share, an organisation called Social Link that's based in Tauranga. If your idea is a new service or even a new organisation, then it's a bigger thing to think about in terms of how we turn it from an idea into reality. And one thing that Social Link, a resource that Social Link have developed, is this really awesome flowchart that helps people to think about the landscape in terms of your idea. So are other people in our community doing this already, or nationally doing this already? So does it mean that potentially we're doubling up? And or does it mean there's potential to collaborate with someone else as opposed to doing the idea ourselves and doubling up in terms of resources and back end that's required to make the idea happen? So it's an awesome flowchart to follow to think about whether, is this something that needs to be standalone by itself, or is there opportunities to do this with someone else? That's at the bigger end of the scale of your idea. So I'll add those links to the slides. So when you're sharing ideas with other people, here's some thinking around level of commitment and buy-in. So at the top, we've got top of the left-hand scale, we've got level of commitment, high to low, and down the bottom, we've got time. So this is all about how people buy into an idea. And it's most interesting, or you can see it strongest when you're sharing an idea with people where they have had no part in creating the idea. So if it's you're at low level of commitment and it's about you decide and you give the information to people, then the level of commitment is going to be low. Buy-in's going to be low. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do some different things to bring people along with you. If you move across the scale a little bit, it takes a little bit more time, because you can always just make something happen or say, here's the idea, I've had it, let's do it. It takes a little bit more time to get feedback, which is that constructive evaluation process. And with constructive evaluation, the very process of asking people to share their feedback, what do you like about it, where do you feel like there are gaps or issues or concerns, helps move people up the scale in terms of buy-in. So at the very minimum, you want to be getting from feedback from people to get them to buy in. And then up the scale takes a little bit more time is best current thinking, which is a process that I'm going to share with you in just a second. So I have an idea to which I'm attached. There's some bits of it that can't change, some bits are up for modification. And I want to get you as a group involved in helping me move this forward. Yeah. So that process of getting feedback, what do you like, where are gaps or issues or concerns, and then problem solving moves people up in terms of that level of commitment as well. And then if you have the opportunity, so you're at the point, which is not really the point of this session, where you don't have the idea yet, or you've got a couple of ideas milling around, then setting up a session where you all generate ideas together is the way you're going to get the highest level of buy-in. Yeah, so that's just flagging why sometimes it feels a little bit harder to get people bought in to your idea. And it's often linked with how much they've had an impact or how much they've been involved in creating it. So you've got two, or you're about to have two processes that can help bring people with you, that constructive evaluation, and I'm going to share best current thinking. But it's vital, unless you're doing this all yourself, which is unlikely, to get people bought in as you go through the process and take them on their journey with you, as you shared in terms of what worked well earlier. So here's another web process that kind of captures what we talked about in terms of building a business case. So it's one of those nice, easy to remember acronyms, ROVCOS. It's not as easy to remember as all acronyms, but it makes the process of the steps easier to remember. So if you're sharing your idea with other people and you're wanting them to change in some way, this is a real helpful process for getting them to buy into that change. So the R is raising urgency. So make the current situation, just in terms of a discussion, more dangerous than moving to the unknown. Yeah. So that makes it sound very risky and edgy. But at a very fundamental level, it's about here we are here. If we keep doing this as we are doing, we're not going to change, and this may happen. However, if we implement this idea with all of these positive benefits, then this may happen. So you're making the status quo less appealing than potentially the idea that you want to implement. So raise urgency first. Get people on side. So this is talking to what you talked about in terms of what worked well. Take people on the journey with you. And a good little rule of thumb is to get 4 people on side. Yeah, so 4 key people if you can. So share the idea with them first, get their feedback, do some problem solving around concerns, and then you've got this group of people who now have a level of passion for your idea. And then those 4 people can help spread the word and help you to get a bit of traction on your idea, to help sell the change and the opportunities based around the new thing you're wanting to do. The third is vision. So paint an attractive picture in 2 minutes. So I said at the start of the session, when you got into your breakout groups, share your elevator pitch. And I hope that you are, all at the point where literally your elevator pitch is 30 seconds of why you exist and what you do. Create that for your idea. You know, you've got people, imagine you've got people for 30 seconds. I've said 2 minutes there. If you can do it faster, that's fab. You've got people for a short amount of time. What you want to do is paint an attractive picture for the difference that you're working to make, or that this idea will make for them. Communicate, so talk, continuously promote the change, continuously talk about the difference it'll make. This is the entrepreneurship bit. You are the champion for the idea, and part of getting from idea to reality is about constantly championing the idea. You are the idea advocate. You are even possibly the idea politician. You choose whatever works best for you, but you're the champion of making it happen. And it won't happen unless you take that champion role on, and you build your group of people who will also become sub-champions as well. Overcome obstacles. So as you share and communicate, you're going to push people to talk about what they like first, but there are also going to be obstacles that you need to overcome. It's a long and winding road sometimes. So those obstacles don't have to be insurmountable barriers. They're opportunities to problem solve. Yeah, and the opportunities to get other people involved to help you problem solve potentially, which is also awesome for getting more people to buy into your idea. Think snowball effect. And I mentioned this already, short-term wins. So set short-term goals and celebrate achievement. Keep up the momentum. So often when you're sharing or you're working to turn a new idea into reality, the most important thing for you is momentum. And an interesting way I often talk about it is, when you're marketing, when you're sharing your, raising your profile as a community organisation, you have to connect with someone 16 times before they even notice you exist. Yeah. And then after that 16 average time, they'll go, man, I feel like I've seen you somewhere before. And so the more you talk about that idea, the more it will start to become almost as if it is true. Yeah. So the more you talk about it, the more it raises the profile, the more you get credibility through consistency of talking about it, and it builds momentum around what you're trying to do. And that is what will help you most in terms of getting from idea through to reality or implementation. Okay, so I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to whip through these last bits. If you need to, at 11 o'clock, go off to something else, please do. If you've got any questions, absolutely, please stay on. I'm here for the rest of the day. So here's the best current thinking process, and here's why it's great. So this is the second most often used process that I use when I'm helping people work through from idea through to implementation, or share anything new, in fact. So why it's powerful is because it shows that you're not finished, or this is not a perfect idea. In fact, if you wait until perfect to share the idea, that massively reduces your chances of getting buy-in and making it happen. So best current thinking is about indicating we're not finished here. I need your help to make this even better. You're open to builds and modifications, and it's a really collaborative way to engage other people and to get more people involved in generating ideas to help you get unstuck. To get gatekeepers on board, and it's a slight extension of that constructive evaluation process. So this is also a really awesome, easy to use process, and this process can speed things up a lot. So in the context of momentum, this process can really help you get things happening a bit faster because you're involving more people in making it happen. And here is, so I like to model quite often. So this is not a slick, beautiful slide of a process that follows a lovely flowchart, because it's about sharing a concept, keeping it rough and visual and verbal, and sharing the emotion behind it. That's where you start. Share your concept as it is right now. Get really clear with who you're sharing it with around what can't be changed. Yeah, so potentially there may be things that are involved with your idea that you can't change. So this absolutely has to be an idea that's focused on youth, or this is an idea that will help the finance team do XYZ, or this is an idea that will help us to provide a better service, whatever it is. And we can't change XYZ. Be really clear about what can't be changed, and that's okay. Because then it shows people where the scope is for the modifications, you know, what's up for changing and modifying. Third step is really important. Check that people understand it. So you share it and you communicate it and you live, eat and breathe it. So you know it really well. When you're sharing it with people for the first time, they don't know it as well. So you just want to check that they really have understood what you have shared with them. And a great way to do that is to get people to paraphrase your idea back for you. So tell me what you heard. I've shared. I just want to check that I've shared it in a way that you know, that really communicates what I wanted to share. So tell me what you heard. And then the next step is that constructive evaluation. So whole group, tell us what you like. $1 million, you will have people in the group that want to get straight to where they see gaps or issues or concerns. So at this point, you're in a bit of facilitator mode. You're pushing people to stay with what you like, what we like, what are the benefits, what's the potential, what are all the good bits. And you can say to them, we're going to get to the bits that don't quite work yet, or where you feel like there's gaps or issues or concerns in just a second. But it's really important for the idea and making it happen that we identify all of the things that work first, so that we don't just go straight to the things that don't work and then throw the whole idea out because we've just focused on what doesn't work. So what works first, what they like, what's the potential, and then gaps or issues or concerns framed as how to. So now you'll have, let's say you've got 10, 12, sometimes 15. It's amazing at once you open the floor to what are the gaps or issues or concerns, how fast they add up. But you'll have a number of concerns, which then you can put to the group and you can say to them, of these concerns that you've shared, it'll be great to work on all of them, but we need to prioritize. So what are your top 3? Yeah, and everyone picks their top 3, just get them to put ticks up, and it gives you a level of priority. And then you literally start with the one that got the most votes. So that's where you start in terms of problem solving. And when you're problem solving that, so let's say it's how to ensure we have a great communication plan around our idea, or how to find the funds to do this idea. The person who raised the concern becomes the owner of that concern. And in order to move them on and get buy-in, you have to solve the concern for them. Yeah. So you're generating ideas to solve the concern for that person. And once it's solved, you've now got all of these ideas that you add to your original thinking, and you've brought that person along with you. And now you can focus on concern number 2. Same process. Yeah. So it's an iterative process of working through those bite-sized chunks of concerns a bit at a time to improve. And then the ideas that you've generated to solve the concerns, you add to your original concept. So they modify your concept, more snowflakes added to the snowball. And then you can get to the point where you check and plan. So what are our next steps here? What are the things that we absolutely need to do to move this on? And, you know, get really clear around what the steps are, who's going to do them, what they're going to do, and when they're going to do them by. Yeah. It's an awesome process for helping you get from idea through to implementation at all sorts of different stages through that idea. Okay, so the reason why we want to build momentum is linked to this innovation adoption life cycle. You probably all have seen this before, and a really great example I usually use with this is mobile phones. So mobile phones were around for quite a while. The innovators went, oh my gosh, the ability to walk around with a mobile phone, which at that point usually looked like a big, huge suitcase with a handpiece or handset that was attached by a cable that weighed a ton. It wasn't that mobile. So the innovators, though, were like, this is awesome. We must have one of these. And then the early adopters were like, yeah, that is pretty good. How do we get one of those? And then at the same time,
adoption, lifestyle.
and then the early adopters come on board too. And then you get the early majority. So what you're doing with your idea is you're not trying to convince everybody. You're trying to keep momentum up, and you're working to connect with the innovators and the early adopters and the early majority to move your idea forward. Yeah, because the late majority and the laggards, you could bend over backwards trying to get them on board, and you won't, because they won't take up the idea, or they won't use the idea or implement the idea until they are 100% sure it will work. Yeah. So focus on your innovators, early adopters. So that's all about thinking about who are your 4 people that you share the idea with and get them on board. When you're sharing the idea, who do you want to make sure that you have in that session? Because you know they're going to support and you know they're going to be open-minded and they're going to help you to make it happen. Focus on those people in terms of moving from idea through to implementation. Last couple. Tips and tricks. So this is really just a summary of what we've talked about. So make sure you've got a clear vision and destination. Paint a really exciting picture that you can share moving between the 10th floor and the 1st floor or the ground floor in the elevator. Yep. So create a story around it. You become a bit of a storyteller and you know that storytelling is the way to get movement and connection with stuff. So create a story around the difference that your idea will make. Raise urgency, talked about that already. It's easier to get buy-in if you've got people involved at the start of the process, and that may not always be the case, especially we're at a session of turning idea into reality. Use those processes that help get buy-in and move people along with you. So best current thinking, ROV costs, and constructive evaluation. Don't wait till perfect. Share semi-finished work or semi-finished concepts, ideas with people. So that they're not resistant to the idea or less resistant than they would be if you shared a perfect functioning idea. And actually don't strive for perfect because we hardly ever get there. And sometimes it's awesome to let it loose and actually learn and modify from whatever you've done. So everything else I've talked about there. The last thing that I wanted to talk about really quickly is who can help you. So what I'm going to do in this slide deck, so when it arrives with you, is share some ideas around who can help you. So it depends on your organisation and your idea, but there are people who can help you out with this. So obviously there's funders, and I don't doubt that you'll be connecting with funders as you go through today. And you can check with funders around whether they have funding set aside to help people move through, progress or implement new ideas. There's a fund called the Working Together More Fund, which is very focused on organisations collaborating to make stuff happen. And there's also a funding database called Give Us. Have you all heard of Give Us? Yeah, okay. So it's a database of all of the funders in New Zealand. And let me just check if you can still access through the library. I want to check that. Actually, I'm going to check with Sandra, because I think they also have a funding database that you might be able to access to. But it's like, how do I know what funders to go to if I don't know what funders to go to? It's a great way of finding out who funds for progressing new ideas. You might also be able to connect with an organisation. So, for example, Eco Centre, part of what they do, they're focused on ideas for sustainability and conservation. But what they sometimes do is they provide a bit of an umbrella for people who have an idea who are not set up themselves as an organisation. So you come under their umbrella, which makes it easier for you to apply for funding and all of the things that can be helpful in making an idea happen. And I'm going to put a link to a whole lot of different places that you can explore that can help you in terms of making your idea happen. Fab. So my apologies, we're at 11:04. Oh, I talked as fast as I could. So let me stop sharing. If you want to stick around and you've got questions, absolutely do. I'm just here. If you need to shoot off to talk to a funder or go to another session, please do. And my apologies that you're gonna be 4 minutes late. Sandra's got all my contact details, and my contact details are in the presentation as well. And what I was going to say is, if we were in a workshop, I would be giving you all a copy of Tonic magazine, which looks a little bit like this, which is one of the resources we create. If you'd like a PDF copy, given that that is how we're operating right here, just pop your email address in chat, and I will email you a copy, and then that will be it. Fiona's got her out. Fiona's got her issue. Brilliant. All sorts of different articles that are really helpful in terms of community and not-for-profit organisations. Thank you. Thanks for joining me this morning. Great. Any questions?
Yeah, Megan, that was all so cool, man. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Lovely.
Have you got